things are general, like just general muscle weakness. You can put that on there. Don't make it your first code. Your first code should be something else. Difficulty in ambulation is fine. If it's like a stroke, though, like hemiplegia affecting non-dominant side or post-residual effects of a stroke, that kind of stuff. Pain of left hip, pain of right hip is fine. But sprain strain codes are actually considered like accidents, which tries to say that it should be third party, like a car insurance, so try not to use that. If you're doing something that's left and right, please use left and right. Here's an example of medical and treatment diagnoses. Again, you can pause the screen here if you want to and look at it later. Here's an example for speech. Again, you can pause the screen here and look at it later. For Chapter 15, care must be under the license, so we need a prescription. Yes, there's direct access for a short period of time, but otherwise we need a prescription. It must be reasonable, meaning we can't expect someone who's been bedbound for 6 years to all of a sudden be walking in 6 months. So you got to take in consideration like Alzheimer's, dementia, that kind of stuff plays in. Like, what do you really expect them to get to? And if 6 weeks you aren't showing any progress, do you really expect progress to be seen in the next 6 weeks or not? Usually you can get away with 5 or 6 weeks of treatment to prove whether they get better or not. It's just hard to research someone who you really don't expect is going to get better. It needs to be necessary, meaning functional loss. Like if they can do all ADLs and IADLs independently, it's going to be very hard to justify a lot of treatment. It needs to be necessary. It needs to be skilled, meaning it needs to be so inherently complex that only a PT or an OT can do it, or PTA under their supervision. Meaning if it's just that you are there for motivation to get a person up and walk because they don't like to do it for their family member or caregiver, it doesn't mean that it's skilled and doesn't mean it's necessary, and therefore it's no longer paid. There were lawsuits about people being cut off because they're not getting better. The lawsuit now says even if it's a maintenance care plan, there still has to be skilled, meaning it can't be done by someone who's not a clinician, even if that person doesn't exist. Even if they live alone, you still can't act as someone who's doing stuff for them if it can be done by someone who's not skilled, even in the absence of someone being there. So that's where skilled care is really the number one reason to discharge someone. Usually, if you don't want any lawsuits or anything, it's because care is no longer skilled. Restorative. For a rehab agency, it's supposed to be restorative, meaning we can't do a maintenance care plan, meaning there has to be some progress. Subjective, objective, functional outcome measure progress. This explains a little bit, meaning like if we get into like 2 30-day periods and there's no progress, then it's going to be really hard to show that's restorative because it's probably going to be hard to show that it's skilled. Frequencies, 2 to 3 times a week, meaning that you really just want it out there twice a week with that third visit being open for the supervisory visit. 3 to 4 times a week, really meaning you want it 3 times a week with the availability of the 4th time for the supervisory visit. It's not a calendar week, meaning it's not Monday through Sunday, 3-week 1, 4-week whatever. It's from the date I do it. So if I see someone on a Thursday, and I say it's twice a week, that means Thursday and sometime before the next Thursday, we're going to go twice a week. So when we calculate the CERT period, if it's 6 weeks, it's 6 weeks from today. Utilization, we like to stick to the Medicare cap, which is about 20 visits of PT and speech combined, or OT by itself. PT and speech combined, again, we can go over the cap because there's different disciplines with different skills and different necessities. But we really want to stick to about, like 20-ish visits. So we could do like a 2-week 6 twice. At that point, it's going to be very hard to justify why we're still in there for like one given condition in that year. It's, if we do like a 3-week 4 and a 2-week 2, which would be like 12 and 4 would be 16, and then we do like a 2-week 6 afterwards, that's about all they've got. Because once we get to about 28 sessions, we hit a manual review process. And once we get to that $2,800, we better have some really good documentation to show why it's reasonable, necessary, and skilled. If you've got someone who's going to go way over that cap, you need to talk to me to figure out if we can do it. And I'm going to look at the case to see if it's a strong enough case to do it. Reassess, similar to home care. Again, we do those progress notes at least every 10th visit. At least every 10th. So it could be the 9876 and or at least every 30th. Again, if we do it every 3 weeks, so if you see one on Thursday, you schedule it 3 weeks from then, we don't have to ever worry about the 30th day because the research also count for these progress updates. So we do the progress in every 3 weeks, the recert every 3 weeks after that. So it's progress at 3, recert at 6, progress at 3. So you're just doing one progress visit per 6 weeks and then either a recert or a discharge. Make sure when you're doing these progress notes that you're just showing some progress, subjective, objective, functional outcome measures. You really want to keep showing like every 10th visit that we're getting progress, which shows that it's rehabilitative and restorative. You really can't discharge someone because it's no longer restorative. Again, you could discharge someone because it's no longer reasonable, no longer necessary, no longer skilled. Skilled being the biggest one. Discharges. Sometimes they get that 10th visit, it might turn into a discharge because they're just not making enough progress or non-compliant, whatever. That's fine. Let us know. We could move it into discharge. Discharge is research progress for the PT. It's whatever units you bill of treatment that day is what you get paid for. Specific to PT and OT. Okay, for specific plans of cares, gait training, I think I've said this a couple times. It is to teach someone a new device, proper mechanics. If it's just standing balance, then it's therapeutic activities. If it's like dynamic balance, taking for a walk, therapeutic activities. By the way, therapeutic activities pays more than gait training, so I'm not complaining if you do therapeutic activities, but gait training really is patient instructed on initial heel contact, need to be in extension, tactile cues at hip for eccentric, that's gait training. If it's standby assist, rolling walker, 50 feet level surfaces, that's therapeutic activities. TheraX, if it has reps or sets or weights, it's TheraX. Neuro, like I've said before, it must have a primary diagnosis of neuro, and it must have words like BOBATH, NDT, PNF, tone reduction, tone enhancing, tone inhibiting. If it's just like dynamic balance because someone has a stroke, that's going to be not neuro, that'll be functional activities, therapeutic activities. Manual therapy, if it's something like stretching, I just make it TheraX. But if you're truly doing like MOBs and stuff, again, it's the least reimbursed thing by over 50%, so it's not something we love to have on the plan of care if we can help it. Self-care management training, you're just not supposed to do a whole lot of it, 2 or 3 times max. You're teaching someone how to do ADLs, you can do self-care management training. Goals, 3 weeks, 6 weeks, make them functional, related to the case, make them matter, showing all short-term goals met at supervisory visit. Ideally, that's how you want to write them, and then long-term within reach. Daily treatment, ideally 4 units, direct time units under the 8-minute rule, so 53 to 60 minutes of documented time. We already talked about this next screen. TheraAct should be the number one thing you usually use. Therapeutic activities, that's all your functional transfers, functional stuff, step up, step down, sidestepping, backstepping, dynamic balance, bed mobility, like all that stuff is TheraAct. Most of what you do is TheraAct, a little bit of TheraX. Most should be TheraAct, if not all of it. Speech therapy, in most cases, should assess speech and swallowing, and treatment should be either or both. They're untimed. Most patients expect about 30 minutes of treatment of each, but honestly, it's untimed codes. So you could do, you theoretically could be in and out in 15 minutes if you wanted to. I don't think patients would be happy, but they are untimed codes. And that's it. Any problems or questions, jump to our website, evolution.rehab.com. I'm sorry, evolution.rehab is our website. There's links there to these videos. Any problems or questions, info@evolution.rehab or ben@evolution.rehab.